Hello, hello, hello. I am live. It tells me up there I'm live, so I'm going to just start talking and keep talking. And today is part two of the Marathon Insights. So yesterday was part one of Marathon Insights and kind of the life lessons that we learn. I actually wrote down 11 of them, although to be fair, there were so many more. Why do I want to share these? I want to share them because since Sunday's marathon, so many of you have asked me, how are you feeling now? And, I say I'm doing okay, but actually, there's so much more that I wanted to share. And these were some of the more surprising elements and the surprising marathon insights, which actually I think would make really great rules for life. So if you're watching this live, by all means, type in the box and I will carry on from yesterday. I love to know which ones you loved most. I love to know which ones you resonate with, and I like to hear your experiences as well. So as I stream, I'm actually broadcasting this live on my LinkedIn profile, which is obviously my name, Jenny Kovacs, Visibility Specialist. That is now my name officially. um, Also on my YouTube channel. So if you prefer to watch these through YouTube, maybe you're doing a commute, maybe you are walking the dog, picking up the kids, taking them to school, taking them being, mum or dad taxi, you'll be able to listen to this. I don't want you watching or doing videos while you drive. Thank you very much. And if you're watching this on my Facebook page, it's to find it, it's Jenny Kovacs Visibility. It's Jenny Kovacs, the Queen of Being Seen, or at Visibility Vibe without the S on the end. Visibility Vibe, and you'll find the page there. Do give it a follow, and you'll also be able to catch up with the previous episode, if you like, of this. So, people often use that throwaway line. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But the marathon didn't actually start for me at the start line. It started way before. It started from my decision to enter the ballot, not knowing whether I was going to get through or not. Knowing, I've got lots of friends who have tried in excess of 10 times and never got through. And given that I think I'd entered the ballot in about 2002, if I remember rightly, and didn't get in. Didn't really think much to it, and then entered it in 2019, and I got through. It gave me the opportunity to not just run one marathon, but two. Clank, clank. So in 2020, I did the virtual marathon and finished that in the glorious time of 8 hours and 14 minutes, I think it was, and a few more seconds. This Sunday, even though I wasn't intending to, I got my personal best, and I finished it in 7 hours, 51 minutes, and I think it was 20 seconds, something like that. It should be imprinted on my brain. But the good news of today is my legs are working again. I can walk normally. I'm pain-free. There's a lot of things that go behind that, but for now, I won't bore you with that. I want to get on to the next kind of insights that are really, really cool. And if you've missed the first 6 that I shared yesterday, just have a look back, watch back. If you watch on YouTube, you can speed it up a bit. And if you do watch on YouTube, will you subscribe to my channel? I'd quite like to grow that a bit more. Anyway, so one of the kind of, I say surprising insights, it shouldn't have been a surprise to me, but it was. Morning, Alan. Morning. Thank you for popping in and saying hi. One of the surprising insights, which is insight number 7, were the crowds. Now, everybody told me, oh, when you run the marathon, the crowds keep you going. And they really did. What they didn't really express or maybe didn't convey, which I want to convey now, and why this is a life tool. Not only were there lots of crowds there, but you've got to think about this. I didn't run the marathon in a couple of hours. I wasn't part of the elite. I think the elite athletes started about 8 something in the morning. They started early. It took me 7 hours, 41 minutes and some seconds. There were still a lot of people lining the streets. Some of them had been there for a lot of the day. Some of them admittedly had been in the pub, yes, and the pub was on the route, so they're having a great old time there. But the crowds were phenomenal. There are a few weird things, synchronistic in my book, that happened. So the first thing was there were people that turned up, specifically one of my friends whose birthday it is today. She turned up to see me and I didn't expect her to be there. I knew that she had a train to catch, she had things to do. So as I ran past the point where she possibly could have been, it was like 8 minutes after her train should have gone. And as I glanced over, I saw her. I was able to get a hug. You don't know how much it means to marathon runners to have people physically there. Now, I know a lot of my friends, like, they sent messages and texts and things like that, but I was trying to conserve my battery so that it would track me along the way. So I turned off all of my notifications and only got to see it in the times I was walking and checking. But to have that in-person support means everything. And this, to me, is a rule of life. Sometimes we go for the hordes of crowds, but just to have that one person. Now, I'm not going to say only one person supported me on the marathon, because that's not true. But to have the support of complete strangers who are holding out Haribo, all other sweets are available, bananas, signs telling us to keep going, shouting our names, meant everything. Second synchronistic and strange thing that happened, one of my vibers, I don't think she's in the group anymore, but one of my vibers who I'd actually met in the flesh, as I was running past, her and some friends all shouted, "Come on, keep going." And I turned around and said, "Thank you." And she went, "I know you." And I thought, I know you. But when you see someone's face in a different space and time, it took me a while to work out who it was, and I know who it was, but I just said, "Oh, thank you so much." And I got another hug, which really fuels you for a marathon. It really gets you kind of literally run off. So again, isn't it nice to have those people in life? Maybe you don't expect them, maybe you don't see them often, that you can turn to, and they can give you a physical or a virtual hug and say, "Keep going, you're okay." The other thing about the crowds, and I said this to a couple of friends, so I feel like I'm sharing things that I share with my friends, but to you, my online friends. One of the things that really stood out to me along the course, other than the number of people who were there all day cheering people on, even when it started to get dark, they were still there cheering people on. There seemed to me all the way along the course to be a specific demographic that I really want to shout out to. This demographic were young girls, and I'm saying young girls, not in a patronizing way. I would say between the ages of like 7 to about 12, maybe 14 if we're going to go into womanhood. Noticeably along the marathon route, they weren't with their parents, there were groups of them. They weren't just kind of enjoying the day and like, "Hey, we've got a day out, or away from mum and dad." They were really screaming, yelling. It almost felt like it was the same group of girls all the way through. The passion they had, the drive, the empowerment, what they imparted to the crowd. They were like, "Come on, you can absolutely do this. We know you can. Keep going." It just felt like such a personal message. It made me feel so emotional, because a lot of people trash young people of today. But here's why I wanted to celebrate them. I wanted to celebrate them for showing up at such young ages and really propelling people forward in the way that they did. I want to congratulate them for being them. And I want us all to remind ourselves of when we were their ages, before we maybe went through the school of hard knocks, the bumps and the turns that sometimes add edges that we add to protect ourselves. Think about the person that you were at that age. What were your dreams? What were your aspirations? What were you aiming for, reaching for? And do whatever it takes to remind yourself of that age. The age where when you grew up, you were going to have a house full of sweets or you were going to have 10 cats. Whatever your dreams were, remind yourself of those dreams, because I don't think they go away. I think they stay within us, and then we learn things and tell ourselves that they're not possible and not achievable. The other reason I wanted to mention this demographic of people is because of the parenting. I know that parenting cannot be an easy thing. I'm not a parent myself. Many of you know my journey, but parenting cannot always be easy. And I'm sure some of you will tell me that, there can be real little terrors at times. But you know what? To have that number of young people on the streets cheering, shouting, encouraging in the way they did, parents, you probably don't hear this enough. You're doing a great job. You're doing a really great job. It was so humbling to see almost how grown up these kids were in their praise of complete strangers. It really makes me feel emotional. And I'm a crybaby, so I'm not going to start blubbing just yet. So, rule for life, have people around you. It's not about having to have lots of people, the big audiences. It could be that one person, it could be a couple of people, it could be random strangers, but put yourselves in places and spaces where you can get support. I've been doing a lot of talks, a lot of masterclasses, a lot of speaking. And as I speak to sometimes people's teams and sometimes organisations and their teams and individuals, it strikes me that we still try so desperately hard to achieve our goals, and we try so hard to do it by ourselves. And it's not that you can't do it by yourselves, it's just that you don't always have to. So that was true to me. So that's number 7, the crowds. Oh, I was yesterday I was putting them on the thing, wasn't I? Yes, and that one I called the power of others. The power of others, number 7. So important. I'll just show it on the screen there. The power of others. Yay. So the next one number 8. I think this should definitely be a rule for life, and it's all around music that can move you. Now, what was quite interesting about Sunday, I keep saying about yesterday, but it's not yesterday now, about Sunday was, various parts of the course. There were bands singing, there were people drumming. I loved the drumming. Oh my gosh, I just wanted to stop and absorb it. There were people drumming, there were people singing, there were bands playing, there were people playing music. And again, I mentioned this to a good friend of mine. One of the things that I found quite interesting and fascinating, literally every bit of music I bumped into had some sort of meaning to me. It was almost like there was a DJ, an invisible DJ saying, okay, play this. So many songs that I heard, and one I shared with a group of friends of mine. Unfortunately, in 2019, we attended the funeral of one of our mutual friends, and we'd found out that during her time in the hospice that she'd been singing, she used to sing in a band, and she'd been singing in a band. And as I was kind of running down one of the streets, and it was getting tough and things were aching, although I knew that there was no stopping or giving up, it was tough. The crowds were slightly thinner, and it wasn't the most picturesque of places to be running by. No London landmarks, and just kind of pounding the pavement, really. And just as I was like, oh, well, man, this is tough, but that's not a helpful thing for me to tell myself, running, I then heard a band singing, and the band were singing a Fleetwood Mac song, and it was like the same Fleetwood Mac song that I'd seen our dearly departed friend singing. It just felt like a sign. It felt like she was kind of looking down and going, come on, keep going. It was such a beautiful moment. And when you think about this in life, music, whether you like somebody else's music or not, doesn't matter, but music has the ability to move you. This morning, just before I started a webinar that I delivered this morning, I'm going to show off now, because I can walk normally today and pretty pain-free today after only a couple of days. I'm so grateful for that. I've got a speaker in my shower. And I was listening to, don't judge me on the music, but I was listening to some music and actually dancing in the shower simply because I could. And it did a couple of good things for me. And what it did was it motivated me and kind of hyped me up, I think is the only way that I can say this. It really hyped me for the masterclass that was to come that I delivered. It got me dancing, got me moving. It alters, music has the ability to alter your state. So here's what I recommend as a little life hack. Think of times where you might need a boost, you might need motivation, you might need soothing, and think of your very best kind of tune. What's your best tune? And I'll tell you what I was dancing to in the showers, and you will judge me, but hey ho, I've run a marathon, don't you know? As I was kind of like, as you collect these different songs, have a playlist, because when times get tough, and they sometimes do, to be able just to turn and listen to that piece of music that's pertinent to you, that will either give you a shove, a shake, soothing, calming, motivation, or something else, is so, so important. Dare I share the song? Right, it's an old song, 2 Unlimited, No Limits. I don't know if you remember. Well, I remember as a young thing, maybe not as young as I'd like to be, Top of the Pops, that the guy was like dancing with his arms. So I figured that even if my legs weren't going to work, I could dance with my arms. But I was stomping around in the shower, trying to focus on having a shower and listening to music. But there's no limits. I mean, what better song than that? They didn't play that on the marathon course, but there's no better song than that. So music can really move you, motivate you, calm you, soothe you. Get your best playlist together so that you can use those and those moments to be able to motivate, boost you, or do the things that you know they need you to do. So that was number 8. Okay, number 9, your fellow runners. And if you think about this as a metaphor for life, your fellow runners are everything. From the moment that I got off the train with lots of other runners to the moment that I looked for the pen, it is actually a pen that you go into. I was in the green pen. I'd already started to meet fellow runners, and hearing their stories were just phenomenal. There's so many, like, there are a few people that I had the foresight as we were running to at least put their numbers on my phone to track how they were doing, because you'd lose people. But there's so many inspirational people actually running the marathon. Hearing their stories, speaking to them along the course was just amazing. But here's a couple of things I wanted to say about the fellow runners. There were some people that were walkers as well. So that obviously it's a marathon. Yes, initially you're supposed to run and all of those good things as well. But you know what? I ran and I walked, and I probably walked more of it than I intended to, but I still did it. Oh my gosh, the runners, the walkers, the people around you really do keep you going. When you hear of some of the stories that they've been through, their own life stories, and this is why I always give props to Alan, because Alan's life story is amazing. And I know that when you go through any form of tough time, hardship, it feels like to keep sharing it to people almost feels like, for some people, it feels like you're putting yourself in victim mode. I felt at times, I don't want to keep going back to that place. I'm okay about it. But at the same time, when you share your human stories like that, it's a really important service to to the people around you. It lets people know that they can do it, whatever the it is for them. It lets them know that they can overcome tough times. So for a lot of people that were running, they were running in memory of others, and they were running really kind of like tough. They were doing tough things. I met people that were currently battling cancer and still did the marathon. I met somebody who has Parkinson's disease and was still doing the marathon. I met a couple who had gone through lots of miscarriages. And I remember having a conversation right at the start where, we were talking about how we felt about it, and they were talking about how nervous they were. And I said, if you think about it, what you've lived through is so much more tough than this. you know. And why is this a metaphor for life? We do have tough times. We do have people around us that have experienced some of our tough times. Sometimes they don't know what it's like to step in our shoes or walk in our shoes, but to be able to have that empathy where empathy is your ability to attempt to feel how someone else is feeling. It doesn't matter if you haven't, but that attempt to feel how someone else is feeling and acknowledge it, not stuff it down, not shut them up, not, throw it away. And just being able to do that as a human being is, I think, the biggest gift you can give another human, just empathizing with them. So along this thing called life, you'll have your fellow runners along the way. And I can say now, I don't know when we're going to do it, but I really thought of 3 other people, someone else, a friend of mine who was in the marathon, who did an amazing time in my eyes. Another person that I know who I saw run in the 2019 marathon, and on Sunday was actually running in a different marathon, and another lady that I've met online and through Clubhouse, who has been a real pioneer for women running marathons, especially when they're not, let's face it, stick thin. She's been a real advocate that you don't have to look a certain way or be a certain way. So I reached out to them yesterday and said, can we do something where we just like sit and talk about our journeys, our experiences? Because I think it would really encourage people. We're not about to try and persuade you to start running marathons, although ballots still open if you'd like to. But I just think the story behind the stories is so incredibly powerful. I just felt like I wanted to get these, they happen to be all women actually, these women together, so that we can, so I can share their stories with you as well, and I can hear more of their stories. So that will be coming as soon as we can get that sorted. I need to go back to them with some dates. And as always, I'll record it and you can watch it back on the replay if you can't make it live. So yeah, your fellow runners along the way. Oh yes. Number 10, post-run walking, aching and gratitude. So the first thing that I want to say is I am so unbelievably grateful that I got to dance in the shower today. I heard very sad news from the marathon that we lost one of our 2022 running family at about mile 23. My heart goes out to the family. I can't even begin to imagine how that must feel. And it's kind of the price everybody pays when they enter. You never know, it's not a quote unquote normal thing to do. So my heart really does go out to them. One of the lessons in life, which I think again is a real life metaphor, I was so busy looking at 26.2 miles, how to break it down into smaller chunks. Halfway there, 5K, I've done another 10K, I've done another couple of miles, slicing and dicing it. And the last few miles were tough. My legs felt very robotic. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever experienced that, where your legs are so stiff and so sore. It's like I was walking and having to throw my hips forward, like I'm doing now in my squeaky chair, to make myself walk. It was tough. What I didn't think about was, like, I kept visualizing in all of my training, even from the moment I entered the ballot, what it would be like to be running up the mile or walking up the mile and crossing the finishing line. Of course, you cross the finishing line, you still need to keep going. You get your medal and your foil blanket, and then you have to collect your bag if you've put one in from the start line. So you collect your bag, and then I had this moment where I wanted to put my flip-flops on, but I knew that if I sat down and stopped, number one, if I sat down, I don't think I would have been able to get up without someone pulling me up. But I knew that if I stopped, I would physically, I think I would have seized up. So it was an interesting thing. I then decided, bad decision, that I was going to meet the man and my sister in the pub along the road. According to my mapping thing, it was like an 11-minute walk. It took me 90 minutes, 90, yes, an hour and a half. And at that point, the man came out to get me and find me. Now, I was going to only share this with the vibers in the Vibe Tribe, but I'll share it with you anyway, because I think it's important to be truthful and important to be vulnerable. I was literally shuffling. I was walking like this. If you imagine a concrete paving slab, I was probably doing between 2 and 3 shuffles per slab. That's how slowly I was walking. And I got to a part of the map where it was like, yeah, you just go around this walkway. And I got there and I was confronted by 9 steps. I just looked at them. I held it together. There was a arm rail, and this really, again, makes me acknowledge and empathize with anyone who has permanent pain, chronic, and lives with chronic pain, and people with disabilities or restricted abilities, whether it's from rheumatoid arthritis all the way through to, you know, being paralyzed or having those abilities. And I remember I heavily leant on this banister, and it took me about 30 seconds to try and decide which leg I felt that I could even put forward to go up on the step, because everything hurt. You know, Sunday night in bed, I actually wore like these leggings, and in order to move my legs, I was actually using my hands to pull the material, the cloth on the leggings, to move my legs because I was aching that much. But as I went up the stairs, remember, I managed to get my left foot on the first step and really bear down on the banister, at the handrail at the side. And here's the sound that came out of my mouth as I did this. It was so painful. It was so painful. But I made it up those steps. Again, I don't even know how long it took me to get there. So when the man phoned and met me to support me to the pub, part of me, I say reverted to my 5-year-old self, but I don't actually remember ever doing this as a 5-year-old. So there's some part of me. I saw him. He was like, well, you know, we've got a drink for you. I'd ordered an apple juice. It's only round the corner. And I just burst into tears. I know you want a story of bravery where I pushed through it. I just burst into tears and I said, this is so painful. Everything hurts and I just want to go home. That's exactly what I said. He was like, okay, let's get you there. And I was like, I can't walk. Can we get an Uber? Taxis are also available too. So yeah, I went to the pub. I sipped on my apple juice. And the funny thing was, as I hobbled in, God love my sister and her quirky sense of humour, she looked at me and then burst out laughing. Don't attack my sister, please. But actually, it lifted my mood. It made me laugh because it must have looked really hilarious. She did follow it by saying, I don't know how you did that. Like 26.2 miles. I can't even begin to imagine. And this is, my sister's the runner of the family. She's a long distance runner. Even without training, I reckon she could have shaved off a good couple of hours of my marathon time. So, yes, the walking, the aching was real. And then as I sat very comfortably on a high chair and kept trying to stretch my muscles out, I realized that the ladies was downstairs, and I was like, this is no way I can go down those stairs. You can't sit in a pub on your bottom and go down the steps. So I cheated and went to the one on the same floor. But I am so grateful to this body of mine, this body who's been 5 decades around the sun, could have done with a bit more practice. You know, I admit that. This body that took me from the start line to the finish line and beyond. And I sit here today pretty much able to walk. I will go for a little walk today. I'm not going to run today. That's just silly, but I'm going to go for a walk. I'm so grateful to this body of mine. And I think in life, despite all the challenges that sometimes can be thrown up in the bodies, from headaches to, you know, more serious health conditions, I think just taking the time to acknowledge our bodies for what they go through, you know, for women who grow a human being inside their bodies without having to keep instructing it what to do, it's a miracle. You know, the very functions of the blood coursing through our veins, taking a moment, even if we don't feel great in any moment, just to have pure gratitude for this thing called the human body, the human vessel, our waterproof skin, you know, and all of those great things, and look after it. Look after it however you can, wherever you can. Acknowledge it. I know sometimes we berate it when it doesn't do the things it should do, or we feel it should do, but acknowledge it and praise it for doing these tough things, because like I think it's a miracle. It is a really modern day miracle. In life, acknowledge the great stuff. So final point number 11, and as I say, there are so many more. This is going to be the weirdest one. Anyone that's ever heard the Teletubbies again, again, again. I still don't see myself as a runner, and I'm cool with that. But I would like to do the marathon and run it a little bit more than I did on Sunday. So I've entered the ballot again, again, again. And honestly, I encourage any one of you, regardless of age or where you are in the world, enter the ballot. It shuts on the 7th of October. You might get through, you might not. It's totally random. Enter the ballot. It wasn't just about those 26.2 miles. It was the whole journey. Some of the things I covered yesterday, from making the decision, the focus, and the community, the strength, all of the things of these 11 points that I've mentioned. And like I say, if you want a quick way to find it, wherever you're watching this, you'll see, just scroll back a bit and you'll see a previous episode, or just have a look on my YouTube channel. There were so many insights. I was inspired by so many people. I was amazed at what my body allowed me to do. And, you know, sometimes repetition is key. It doesn't always have to be. I've heard many people have said, run a marathon, never doing it again. And that's okay too. A bit like decisions. It's okay to say yes. It's okay to say no. It's not so okay to be dangling in the middle. I want to say to you, honestly, seriously, 100%. Alan and Ian, who's popped up and said, go, Jenny, well done. You will have heard how many years I talked about, oh, the marathon was on yesterday and I watched and I was inspired in one day. So to me, this felt like an absolute dream, an absolute bucket list piece. I got to raise some money for charity. And by the way, if you can spare just £1, €1, $1, whatever you can spare, please, please, please support it. Because although I finished the marathon, I haven't finished my fundraising yet. And last time I checked, I got close to 50%. I was getting closer to 50%. I'd really love to run, to raise or hit my fundraising goal. Because honestly, if I could stop anyone ever having to experience what I experienced in 2010, I'd take it tomorrow. I'd absolutely stop that tomorrow. When you're donating, you're not really donating to me. You're not really donating to my marathon run. You're donating to the people who have lived this dreadfully raw, painful experience. And unfortunately, there'll be more moving forward. You're helping to support people that don't even know that this thing can exist in life. So I want to say, sometimes in life, there's a time to go again, again. Like now I'm doing 3-year-old Jenny, again, again, again. I'd like to get into the next marathon because it's in April this time, and I can just keep training and train to properly like do some longer distance running in the marathon. And then after that, I will retire from full marathons. I actually would like to run a 10K race. I've never run a 10K. Can you believe that? So I'd like to run a 10K race. But after that, I'd like to hang up my marathon trainers and do sort of like, you know, a couple of 5K runs a week just to keep fit and active. And that's that. So again, I'd love to hear your insights from anything you shared. Thank you for those of you that have listened back to the replays and have been commenting. And I'm still trying to keep up with the comments from the I made it. I did it as well. I've had like hundreds on lots of different channels. Thank you so much for your support. Your support has meant everything. And I don't say that lightly. It means everything. Those of you that have shared my posts, those of you that have donated, those of you that have said a well done, those of you that have shared parts of your story, your journey, those runners who I probably won't meet again, who, you know, Alex, who I crossed the finishing line with and had a good pace at the end. You know, I'll probably never see her again. There was another Alex earlier on, and a Sarah that we, you know, we spent the first few miles with, had a good giggle, a good chortle, and they really like inspired me. So many people's names that I don't remember, but if you are able to support people, other people, just look for the hashtag London Marathon 2022, whichever social media channels you're on, and just give them a like, show them that you're thinking of them, show them that you'll support. So thank you, Ian, for the go, Jenny, well done. So brave for entering the ballot again for just over 6 months' time. Honestly, Ian, between, someone's drilling upstairs now, between you and me, just between you and me, Ian, that's the reason I entered it, because it's close enough for me just to like keep going and not fall off the wagon. I'm going to do a special live in the Vibers about some of the behind the scenes, and some of the reasons why it was actually maybe not the most sensible thing for me to attempt to do it, but I did it anyway. So yes, thank you for that. And Alan says, interesting. However, your description of walking afterwards would be my description of walking before a marathon. Congratulations. Alan, you make a really, really, really great point. I acknowledge, you know, people band around the, you know, people living in pain, you know, chronic pain conditions and things. I was grateful because I don't live in chronic pain. I do have a chronic pain condition, which is, you know, another thing for another time. But it's not a permanent pain thing. You know, I get some respite from that. However, to think that how I felt at the end of the marathon is how many people feel all day, every day, honestly, for me, is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because I wish there was something that I could do so that people didn't have to feel that, wouldn't have to feel that. But as a visibility specialist, I know that there are health professionals, there are osteopaths, chiropractors, doctors. I've had clients that have been doctors, nurses. You have the skills to be able to help some of these people through some of these things. And from a visibility perspective, don't let the prospect of putting your work out there, putting yourself out there, scare you or stop you. People need you. People live in pain like this all the time, and you can really help them. Nutritionalists and other people like that. There are people that can just go and sit with people, support them, stay in connection with them, stay in contact. It's the reason why I built the Visibility Vibes Tribe. I wanted to bring together a community of people that would get on and support and love each other. It's not because I wanted to crack the whip and have a group. So I still advise you to do that. You know, the lovely Ivona in the group recognized many years ago that their people are feeling lonely and they're feeling by themselves, and she's put on quite a few meetups, you know, sort of both sides of the pandemic to help people with that. You know, you matter, your voice matters, your work matters. And if there's one thing that you can take from all of these is take it from me, the visibility specialist, is this: you are important. Your words matter. Your voice matters. Go out there, be seen, be heard, be visible, and be unapologetic. Your people are looking for you. Thank you so much. Bye for now.